Welcome to the Wordy Podcast, your go-to hub for all things writing, world building, and the occasional dive into the weird and wonderful world of fiction. We're breaking down the barriers between you and your next great story. Whether you're a seasoned scribe or just scribbling your first sentences, we've got something for you. We'll be discussing everything from crafting compelling characters to dissecting the good, the bad, and the downright bizarre in the world of fiction. Okay, this script says you guys are eccentric. Isn't that just a 3-syllable word for weird? No offense. So, whether you're in need of inspiration, a good laugh, or just a couple of weirdos to keep you company on your writing journey, you're in the right place. Thanks for tuning in to the Wordy Pair Podcast.
All right, hello and welcome. This is the start of episode 16 of the Wordy Pair Podcast. I'm Rudy.
And I'm Justin.
And we have got some rather fresh stuff for you today. So, Justin,
fresh
how about
fruits.
You introduce the topic that we're going on to today, because it most significantly affected you.
Yeah, well, I mean, we got this topic last minute because I just ran some paperbacks of one of my books off of Amazon's print on demand, and I had heard some horror stories about the covers. And I'm not going to say it's an actual horror story. I am fine with this because paperback was never what I was really going for once digital became so big.
Sure.
But yeah, Amazon, whatever they're doing at their printing presses, and I worked at a printing press once. I'm not exactly just coming at this like not understanding the process or anything, but they don't know how to run certain covers. And this is one of those things where I had noticed years ago that tons of people started putting their books out with matte finish covers instead of glossy covers. And I like glossy covers. I don't like the feel of matte covers, and I think glossy covers look better in pictures and on shelves. They kind of look like something that was made in someone's barn once you put a matte finish on them.
Okay, yeah.
But I fully understand why this happened now. Because Amazon doesn't know how to run glossy covers. And
what do you mean? Hold on a minute. Let me just slow down for a second. What does it take to run a glossy cover?
Well, whatever it takes, because I didn't do printing of glossy covers, but I do know that once you run them off, you have a guy, sometimes me, who looks at them, and there'll be streaking and press marks from some of the machinery that runs them off. I don't know what kind of printer Amazon is using. I'm assuming that they're modern ones, because I've never actually seen older ones do this poor a job. And it's not like it's atrocious. It's really not a horror story. There's scratch marks on them to begin with. I suspect that's not part of the machine. I would
probably
guess,
just handling after printing.
Yeah,
right?
I would guess that they don't have good handling, because usually, like Amazon's probably not using gigantic printing presses like the traditional printing presses would use. I'm just guessing at this, but usually those machines will print out and sort these covers in ways that they won't get scratched. You know, they usually have a system of like air nozzles and things to blow dust off and so forth. And then storage would just be as simple as having stacks of them on a pallet that are strapped down and stored into just your average warehouse somewhere with temperature and moisture control.
Maybe a layer of paper between them or something like that?
No, you really don't even need to use the layer of paper, because the bottom is usually a different consistency than the glossiness, and it's the paper that you would probably be putting between them to begin with. So you don't have to do that. You can lay them right on top of each other, and worst case scenario, you usually have to get rid of the one that was on top because the strap might have left an imprint on it.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of things that Amazon definitely does wrong. You can kind of see the corner marks of places where, in the process of printing them, the sheets were held down by the machine. And
Okay, yeah.
you have to like turn it in the light to see a lot of this, but this is definitely something that would be noticed by anyone who had worked at a printing press. And
Like an indentation?
yeah, like an indentation. And it's not a
Okay.
big one, but it's definitely noticeable.
Sure.
There's also a lot of, like, if you turn it in the light a lot, you see a lot of bend marks at regular intervals, as if
Bend marks. Okay.
they're not actually bent, but what it looks like is that the rollers, they don't have them set well to where the roller marks aren't showing up. So
Yeah.
so there's a part in the machine where they'll run through some rollers to pull the paper through, and there you can adjust those so that they're not pressing down too hard. You have to get them just right to where they're not leaving a mark, but they're pulling the paper through. It's actually a really irritating process for anyone that's had to do it. You have to be really precise, and then it'll get messed up as the machine is going, so you'll have someone watching the stuff coming out, and it's like quality assurance is like, we got to stop the machine for a minute, we got to do something with the rollers.
Adjust the rollers, yeah.
And
Okay.
keep in mind, I operated a collator, so I know very little about the printing press itself, but I know enough to know when something has gone wrong coming into my machine. They do a pretty good job for the way that you have to set it up when you decide to get something printed. So the way I had it is, you've got a digital book, and you want to do a print version. Now, Amazon is exceptional at the software side of things. They have software that you can download. I think it's called Kindle Create, where you put your file into this software. I think you can put a Microsoft document file. I don't know if it does PDF. I think it's mostly RTF and Microsoft Document that it works with.
Right, but it takes your raw text file, basically.
Yeah, it'll take what you've done, and it will format it for a digital version that will work well in most e-readers, if not all of them. Amazon probably has the best thing that does this that I'm aware of on the market. They don't have the one that you can fine-tune the most, but just for one that you just want to put it in there, get the product out, and be able to put it out there, they certainly have the best one.
So their fine-tuning in Kindle Create is decent. You get a few different font choices. They don't give you like a million different choices, but you can fiddle with the different fonts of the different, like, chapter titles versus body text versus whatever. You can assign pages to be back matter and front matter so that the pagination works properly. Things like that. I've used it, so it works reasonably well.
Yeah, and the nice thing about it is that over the years they've improved it to the point where you can take the file that it spits out, you can use it to upload your digital book, and you can use that same file to do your paperback book, and it will automatically set it to the size settings that you request for the print versions. So the internals are actually really good. They're not amazing because, like you said, there's only so much you can do formatting wise, but
the formatting and like the font choice and things are quite limited, but they're not one and one alone. You get like, a few choices.
Yeah, and you can do several like nice things like inserting separators or doing drop caps at the beginning of chapters.
Right.
It's
got
got enough
stuff.
options that if what you're trying to do is put out a book for people to read, especially fiction, it's a good way to go. I have not done anything besides fiction, so I can't speak to how well it works for, say, a technical manual or anything like that.
With like graphs and stuff.
Yeah.
So I've bought some books that were printed, I think, independently through Amazon. I think. I guess I'm not sure. But
they
Tom
can
Wood's
be.
book,
They do have a distribution method for other distributors to pick up the book and sell it through their channels.
So Tom Wood's book, Real Descent, it was self-published by him, and I suspect that he used the Amazon system. And also Bob Murphy's book, the Contra Krugman book, and both of them, wherever there are plots, the plots look fairly bad. I don't know if that's because he gave them bad files or if because they're the abilities of the print were very limited. But those both books, I'm pretty sure they were both self-published, and therefore I assume they were probably published through Amazon, and therefore I assume that they show what Amazon is capable of. And, well, for the plots, it was not particularly good. Although
Well,
they are both a few years old.
I would say that the problem there might not actually be Amazon.
Maybe.
When you do a technical manual for Amazon, you're going to want to upload a PDF, and they should be able to produce the PDF. Like that's why they usually don't look good on the digital services, and why a lot of the Kindle e-readers have certain books that they just can't do. Like they'll tell you when you go to buy them, it's like you can't use this with a Kindle e-reader,
Right.
is because you upload a PDF, you try to look at it digitally on an e-reader, and you can't even see some of the images sometimes. They're meant to be printed, or they're meant to be seen on a digital screen.
Or they're meant to
like
be
a
in
tablet.
color when they need, when there's only black and white. Yeah.
Yeah, and Amazon does a pretty good job of converting things from color to grayscale too. They've gotten a lot better at that. I mean, you can get a lot of manga on e-readers these days.
Yeah.
I mean, they're black and white, but I mean, there's certain comics that aren't black and white that I've seen that are just like the covers of comics that are in color. You'll see them in grayscale.
Sure.
But I think that's just, you really have to know that what you're formatting and how you're formatting for the digital side of things, especially since resolutions are always increasing. I've got an old Sony e-reader that if you were to try and put one of the modern PDFs on it, you can't see anything on it. And the only way that you can really use that one is if they have an enlarge feature that just makes everything ugly.
I see.
So there's a couple issues there, but for fiction, Amazon's process is incredible. I used to think a lot less of them when it first started, but I figured at some point they would improve, and they kind of knocked it out of the park in a few places. And in other places, I mean, especially with glossy covers, not so much. The cover upload is really nice because I wanted to have a crappy picture on the cover because I had a cover for the book, and I kept looking at it like, yeah, but it looks like everything else that's on the shelf. And so I drew something up very poorly, very quickly, that was very simple, and I said, this is good enough. I mean, at the very least, it's like, it's different than whatever it's next to, which it's not even going to be next to anything on the shelves because I did not do wide distribution. It's like only available on Amazon. So I was not too concerned about, the cover to begin with. But once it arrived, I was looking at it and it was like, I noticed all these problems. I noticed that it looked like not too much care was taken with it. There were, fingerprints all over. You're supposed to handle the books very minimally when you go to package them, and that was another thing. I don't think
my hypothesis is that Amazon does not have good handling procedures.
For books, definitely not. Like, I'm sure that other things they're like, we can cut corners.
Well, no, but almost everything Amazon sells is already packaged by somebody else, right?
It's not just that. In the case of the books. In the case of the books, I don't think they actually ever had anyone that they consulted with that said, and here's how you package books. So my first order, I ordered 5 copies. And
which by the way, we should at least make note that being able to order 5 copies of a paperback is something that you cannot do in traditional publishing, generally speaking.
Yeah, Amazon services are all print on demand. This is kind of where I'm going with what I think the process is here, and I think that the printing press I used to work at was moving to this smaller digital print on demand model while I was there, and they had these all new machines that were essentially no longer taking giant printing press runoffs as their paper. They were actually printing out like 8x11 sheets with the books on them, double-sided, and cutting them to size from those sheets instead of having the giant folds that would have several pages all on one sheet, and they would go through a bindery and a cutter to give it that to separate the pages. I'm pretty sure that's what Amazon does. And I also think that this new process, it comes with a lot of these problems, such as they seem to be able to do bleeds pretty well. I don't actually have any books that require that, so I wouldn't know personally, but I haven't heard too many people complain about having bleeds that are troublesome. More importantly, though, there is a well-known way to package books across the entire publishing industry, and it does not include First off, I ordered 5. I got an email that said your 4 books were on the way, and I generously assumed that meant that I'm assuming that they ran off 4 of them and wanted to ship them out as quickly as possible because they'd given me a 2-day delivery date. And it's like, I would have been glad to wait the 3rd day and just get them all at once. But that's what they did. They sent 4 of them out right away. And then the last one they sent it in a separate package. And the first package had 4 books.
Yeah.
Did not have any styrofoam on the sides or on the bottom or top. The books were loose on the top, so that meant they were moving around during shipping, and they had separated them in the weirdest way I have ever seen books separated. 2 standing upright on one side of a tall box, 2 standing upright on the other side, and one of those air bubble packages between them.
What?
That meant they were jostling around the entire time. There was no pressure keeping the books closed, so all the corners on the open part are messed up. The back end was fine because they were pressed up against the box, kind of okay. There was still some looseness. Yeah. There's not supposed to be any looseness when you package a book. You're supposed to.
So the thing about books, right, is that they're typically rectangular, and so therefore it's fairly easy to put them together into a larger rectangle, and then cover them in some kind of slightly padded paper, and then wrap like a tape around them so that they don't spread out or anything like that. So you basically end up with a fairly solid paper, thick rectangle that you can fairly easily put into a box, put packing material around, and then ship it. And then all the books stay together. They don't move relative to each other. They might move a little bit relative to the box, but hopefully they don't. You put enough stuff in that they don't do that. It sounds like they didn't do that at all for you.
Not at all, and really, I mean, it's not that hard. I used to do the book packaging.
Well, no, this is. I mean, I just thought of the procedure in.
Well, it's even simpler than you think. Like we would
really.
We would have certain box sizes for everything, so we were a pretty prepared publisher. They're just using whatever Amazon boxes they have, whatever different sizes they have, and they're like, yeah, just put a book in this, whatever. Which would work fine if they did it like this. Like let's say 6 books will fit in a box. You stack 6 books side by side. You put the backs of one side against the box, and then you put the backs of the other ones against the opening side of the books that you're putting them next to.
Yeah.
And then you make sure that they're touching. You put, if there's any open space on any of the sides, you have a top side, just shove a thing of styrofoam down there. Doesn't even have to fill it, just enough to make sure the books don't move. And then if there's opening on the side of them, you shove a piece of styrofoam down there. And if there's any room on the top, when you seal the box, you fill that room with a piece of styrofoam or cardboard, and you seal up the box. It's really easy.
Yeah.
We used to run off, we could run off thousands of books in one night, and it'd take 1 or 2 people to package them. And we had, I mean, it was a fast process. We were able to make all these books go out in good condition. The 5th book did actually get shipped. It got shipped after the 4th one, the first 4, but it arrived on the same day. It arrived in one of those envelope packages with a little bit of bubble wrap inside.
Okay, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Zero care for any of the corners of the book.
Yeah.
And it was in a bigger package than the book fit in. And this is a big book, so they used a really big package. So it's like jostling around inside against bubble wrap, which surprisingly, this is the funny thing though, that's the one copy that had the least amount of scratching on it.
Well, because there was less. I could see that happening just because there was less for it to rub against. Like it kind of was stuck inside the envelope.
Yeah.
And the insides of the envelope are all smooth, but the other ones probably had goodness knows what.
Well, in the inside, you had the one air bubble in the center, so if it shifted, it would shift back and forth over the center of that air bubble.
Uh-huh.
And you know what? It's not that it's a really big deal either. Like, lesson learned, I guess I'm going to do my my next ones in matte finish, but I'm going to keep this one in glossy just so if anyone ever asks, I can be like...
one thing to maybe think about is that it might be that the handling procedures that they have are designed for larger numbers. if you printed out 100, maybe you would get better results. Not that I'm saying that you should spend the money to print out 100, but like it might be that they have like.
Well, that doesn't make sense for someone who's doing this specifically to do print on demand. I mean, it's like you said, nobody is ordering 5 copies for print on demand. People are ordering individual copies, and they sent me an individual copy in a brown paper envelope.
Yeah.
Like, that works for magazines. It does not work for, especially books with as thick a spine as this one.
Yeah.
Now, that being said,
you showed me a picture of the book, and it's a really thick monster because it's a very long book. The Good Guy is a long story, and I wanted to ask. Well, I mean, I guess you won't know for a while, but you should definitely look into like the strength of the spine and see how long the spine lasts before it starts to crease out, because I'm a little worried about that. Thicker books are worse with that, generally speaking.
I'm interested to know, but at a glance, I was looking at it, and it seems like they did a really good job with the binding. I won't know until I've read a copy 2 or 3 times, which lame as I am, yes, I've read my own book several times. But the binding looks really good on it. They did a pretty good job of so they have an automatic system for book covers too. Like, you can just jump on when you go to publish your paperback, they have a book cover creator. Yeah. Now, I drew a picture for my book cover, but I did not want to attempt to try and draw the title and any of the writing. I'm not good at text. I'm not even good at drawing, but like my text would just look like crayon scribbles of it would look like someone's kindergarten presentation of a science project. So I took my image and used that for the cover.
We should probably stop to note that your picture of the main character resembles, to my eye, most closely the very well known pencil portrait of Max Stirner.
So it's that is also hilarious because my old cover was just an image that I told someone, hey, here's the book, can you just get me a cover for this? And I didn't really tell him what the characters looked like or anything, and he sent me something back that was serviceable but did not really look like the character in my head. I didn't have a big problem with that because I got it cheap, and I know that I would never really see the character that's in my head in the picture that I would get from any artist. That's just not how that works.
You could get an artist to do that, but it would cost $1,000.
Yeah, and it was a good enough cover, so I just ran with. I mean, I've actually got the cover of the Rackin' Milk Muffin is black, and I meant for her to be more sort of Indian because I based her look kind of off of a mix of Kay from the Dirty Pair and Vincent Raleigh from Gunsmith Cats.
Raleigh Vincent,
yes. The funny thing about that image is, like, I looked up Max Stirner after you asked me about that, and I saw that side profile pencil drawing, and I was like, oh my god, that's what Ray Peril looks like. How did... Cause...
Yeah, it's very strange because, number one, it is... The likeness is uncanny.
No, but that's what he looks like in my head. I'm not even joking.
I know, but so I have multiple steps here. So you drew a picture that you thought looked like Ray Peril, right? And you didn't know about that pencil drawing of Max Stirner, but you basically drew Max Stirner's pencil drawing only in front instead of profile, and then and then it turns out that Max Stirner is best known for his philosophical work in extreme egoism, which also fits the character of Ray Peril. So this is just some kind of very strange cosmic coincidence, but it worked out very well for you.
It did. It's like, and it's, I had in my head, I largely based the look of Ray Peril off of Vash the Stampede.
Yeah.
That was the biggest, visual inspiration for the character. Someone tall, someone who wore like a trench coat or duster kind of thing,
Yes.
Yeah, that's I have trouble picturing Ray Peril when I try to picture him holding his guns because it's like I just picture Vash the Stampede. But he didn't have the hair that Vash had. It was different haircut. Right. It was a Max Stirner haircut. And now I'm wondering if Vash the Stampede was based off of Max Stirner.
I don't know. I have no idea.
I suspect not, but
I suspect not. But I mean, it may be that the guy who drew Trigun had seen that portrait or that picture and said, "Ooh, I like that style." I don't know. I really just don't know.
I mean, to be fair, there's a lot of characters that did look like Vash the Stampede and Max Sterner in a lot of things.
Yeah.
So the binding is good. A lot of things are good about it.
Well, you think the binding is good, but you haven't given it a stress test yet.
Yeah, not really. I mean, I've got a couple of copies here that I can do that with. I'm not seeing any problems like the ones that I would normally have looked for at the printing press. Like, a lot of times we'd do a pull test on the front cover to see how the glue on the front is, and
no, the main problem that I have with books that thick with a thick cardstock cover like it looks like yours has, is that the cardstock of the back spine basically cracks, and then the book basically falls apart when that happens.
Yeah, even a book that's really well bound a lot of times can have that problem.
So there's a trick, and a lot of binders don't do this, but there's a trick where what they do is they'll put a corner basically on the cover on the side covers that gives the side covers a place to start bending at.
Yeah, these have that.
Helps a lot. They have that. Okay,
yeah,
so
that's
at least a good step. So hopefully they'll hold together.
Yeah, there's a lot of issues with books nowadays where you read them for a while and then pages start falling out on you and you're like, what the heck?
Yeah.
But for the most part, I think the overall process they have is good. I think the book covers themselves are their weak point, and I think they should do a better job of packaging. But as it stands, for what it is, I would say that independent publishing is at that point now where it should really be outpacing the major publishing companies pretty soon. I mean, this is pretty good quality from what I would have expected. When I first started, it would have been like, I don't know if I'm going to trust an on-demand printing from Amazon.
Yeah.
There is another issue, though.
Okay.
So, obviously it's going to cost more to run off a book that's a lot of pages. So I wasn't really surprised at how much I had to price the book at. But let me break down some numbers.
Do you want to give numbers or not?
Yeah, I'll give some numbers here, because it was actually the shocking part was just how much the cost of printing books has gone up. Because this is supposed to be a relatively cheap medium of entertainment. I used to spend and this is a long time ago, but when I was younger, $5.99 would buy me a book, and I'd get 3 to 10 hours out of reading that book, plus any other times I decided to go back and read it, which is a pretty good value. Yeah,
so from my own experience, the Nero Wolfe, the reprints of the Nero Wolfe books in paperback generally were about $5.99 or $6 or so. And they're, 200 pages, maybe a little more than that, generally speaking. Good couple hours of reading, something like that.
Yeah. And I have some shorter books that I'm going to be interested in seeing what the prices come out to. This one's kind of a monster. I printed it at 6 inches by 9 inches, so 6 inches wide, 9 inches tall.
Okay.
And this book is still 635 pages. It is a monster.
Jeez. Yeah.
And I wanted to print it as an older style, smaller sized paperback, and it was actually one of my concerns was how it was going to come off of their bindery. I was thinking, the glue might not hold together with how big this would be, because it would be 900 pages or something. That point, it would be like a Clive Cussler novel.
Did you look at the possibility of changing the font size or anything like that?
Well, I didn't. I decided not to go with it, so I didn't even look at that stuff. I decided I just wanted to do the 6x9 because I'm going to do a hardcover print as well.
But could you? But you could probably. I mean, how big is the print?
Oh, the print in this is, I'm not familiar. I think it's 12. It might be 14. I think it's 12 though.
12 to 14 is pretty large for a print book. You could go with
maybe it's 11.
10.
I don't know.
Well, I mean, but I guess my question is, you get to choose that. Is that right?
I didn't look at it though when because it formatted it automatically very well. So I was like, yeah, I'm happy with this, and I'll run with this. But
okay, fair enough.
You're talking about trying to get a smaller page count out of it, right?
Yeah, I'm just wondering if you reduce the font size by a point or two.
I think the size
would it still be readable?
It would be, but I think the size it's at is what anyone holding a book this size would want to read.
Fair enough. But you usually might be able to get from 600 down to 500, maybe.
Yeah, in the end, it's a good size for what it is. I actually think this is the size that it belongs in, because much as I like to have these smaller size, I don't even remember what size it is. It's what is it, like 4 something by 6, or I don't even remember.
Small size for what? For books?
Traditional paperback size from.
I think it's half of a A4, right? So it's like 4.25 by 5.5, something like that.
Yeah, it's something like that. And like I said, that would be like
I could go get a paper book back and a ruler, and we could find out. But
no, it's no big deal. It's just it would have made it the size of like one of those old desktop paperback encyclopedias, and it would look cool. But I mean, that would definitely have spine issues over time, because those always tend to invert really deeply, and then pages are always falling out of them. Then the cover falls off,
Right.
So I think I got lucky with what I picked. I think this works great, and
I saw the picture that you sent, and I couldn't see any of the blemishes on it that you were talking about, and it looked solid.
You're not going to see it when you're getting a photo, because the light has to be hitting it, right? But it's very noticeable. Like right out of the package, I was like, oh, I hope these aren't all like this, and then I started pulling them out, and it's like, yeah, they are.
Oh, these are all like this.
But to be honest, it just looks like a book that someone has had on their shelf for a while and has read and is like handled a little bit, so it's not terrible.
Yeah.
This is not the horror story that people were telling me. It's just that they don't have a good process for how they store their covers, or how they
transport them and move them around. Yeah,
that's apart from that, the cut is fine. The binding, like I said, looks almost perfect. Like I see one blemish, and it's one that would pass any quality assurance test.
Okay,
so
that's not bad.
The internal formatting is good. I've actually got a quote by you in here, because it had praise for the author. I used one of your quotes.
Ah, nice. I told you that I told you that you should have had in the back in like white on black the thing that I said earlier. Like this thing should sell a million copies or whatever I said.
I will put that on the hardcover one.
Yeah. If you do another print of the softcover, you could put it on that too.
Well, no, the softcover it's on Amazon. Anytime I want, I can order them. I don't think I'm going to change anything on it anytime soon. There were a couple of things that it's technically my fault, but it was really hard to tell on their cover creator. The front image that says the good guy is not really centered. And it did not look like it wasn't centered when I did the cover creator, but it's still within the bounds. It's just like the right side has a little more empty space than the left side, and the G in the good guy all the way on the left is like right up against that corner bend that you were talking about.
Yeah.
So it's like right there. And then the side, which I'm surprised this one didn't come out better, because this was actually the text that came out from their cover creator, where it says the good guy, the hanging part of the Y is touching the very edge of the spine. It's not wrapping around at all on the back, but it's touching the very edge. I would have thought that they would have shifted that up a bit. So I think something must have shifted everything over just a little bit to the left, and that's why that happened. It's just weird, because like the spine thing that you get for the creator it's automatically centered where the spine is supposed to be, so it should have run off exactly like it looked from that image. I don't know what happened there. Other than that, I mean, this is perfectly serviceable for me, minus the fact that I'm going to constantly have to explain to people, no, I wanted the bad art on my cover. I did it myself, and I just...
You could do two editions and call one limited.
I don't think that works as well for an independent run of a no-name
book that nobody bought anyway.
Yeah.
Well, no. You could have the one with your drawing be for like signed copies or something like that. I don't know. You could have fun with it.
Well, I mean, that's what I'm doing. I essentially did the print version just so I could print them out and like sneak them into libraries and leave them at cafes, and just this is my marketing strategy, which will cost me...
guerrilla marketing?
Yeah. It'll cost me more money than it'll make me, but it'll be fun. Because the first time I go online and I see someone saying, well, who the heck is this guy that wrote this book? I love this. I'm going to be like, all right, I can die a happy man.
Yeah, finally. Someone left this piece of garbage on.
That'll work too. I could also die a happy man if I saw that.
Anything but indifference, and we're good. No, so I was going to ask, do you mind saying how much the print on demand is for someone to buy a copy?
I not only don't mind, I want to talk about this because this is how bad prices have gotten for physical media.
Yeah.
When I first had the notion of doing this years ago, the price that I would have had to set this book at to make almost nothing for each order was $12.99. And I believe the royalties would have been something like 79 cents per book.
Okay.
And this is the same book we're talking about. So
Right.
So this is how much prices have changed in the past 4 years. The lowest price Amazon would let me set it to, because they have to cover their costs, and
yeah, of course.
There's I'll explain the split in a minute, but $14.41 I think was the cheapest I could set this book to and still sell it, and I would have had to set it to $14.99 to make about 70 cents per copy.
Yeah.
I was concerned because when originally I saw the $12.99 price point 4 years ago, I said, okay, nobody's going to want to buy this for $12.99. I'm used to buying books for $7.99, $9.99. If I can't set this for $9.99 at the lowest, I'm just not going to bother, which is why I waited so long to do it.
Yeah.
I had to set it to $16.99 just to make... I would make slightly over $1 per book at $16.99.
$16.99. Wow.
And that's at the best distribution just based on Amazon's website. If you tried to do distribution where people could order from Amazon and put it in their bookstores, like Barnes & Noble could order it from Amazon, put it in their store. Smaller dealers could order copies in bulk and put it in their stores.
Yeah.
That also includes worldwide people ordering and selling it, in different countries.
Sure.
Instead of getting a 60%, which I'll explain what 60% actually means, but instead of getting that, you would get 40%. So the price I would have had to set this book at, in order to make any money on it at all, for a paperback novel, granted it's a huge paperback, so of course it's going to cost a lot to print. I'll get to that in a minute too. $21.90 something cents, I believe it came to, and I was just like, maybe I'll save. That's crazy. Maybe I'll save that for the hardcover version. I don't know. I mean, I might switch to worldwide distribution, but if I can't sell them in one country, I doubt I'm going to sell them worldwide. Like the only other place I can think that I would have a chance at selling more copies than I could sell in America would probably be the UK. And to be honest, I don't hear too many people talking about Terry Pratchett anymore, so I just don't know if funny, weird books are things that people like anymore. I don't know.
It's dead. The whole genre is dead.
J.K. Rowling killed it. But it's... I felt that I wouldn't be able to sell anything at $21, so I was like, I'll just stick with Amazon distribution for now and see what happens.
No, it's a long book that should probably be consumed electronically as
definitely. And the best part about it is, I mean, I like having a physical copy more than a digital copy, just like anyone else. But there's two reasons I do like digital. Like people will crap on digital all day. The only thing I don't like about digital is how they try to set things up to where it's not really yours. Like you don't have permanent ownership of it somehow, which Amazon does that. There's other places that don't. And there are ways to pull the Mobi file off of a Kindle and put them on another e-reader where you've got the file somewhere where it can't be deleted, just because Amazon's like, well, you don't get your books anymore. Yeah. I don't see that happening anytime soon, but it's a possibility. And it has happened with certain companies like Sony. You pay for a movie on Sony's services, and then they're like, we're not going to carry this movie anymore. So even though you bought it, you don't get access to it anymore.
You lose it. Yeah. That's a little...
And that will happen. That will happen someday with digital books. I'm sure of it. Any digital books that you don't have the file in a place where it's local. I mean, the files are local on a Kindle. So like if Amazon shut down the service tomorrow, you would still have anything that was downloaded to your Kindle. The problem is, we all know that places like Amazon, the first thing they would do is they'll patch it. They'll send an update or a patch that would basically brick the system. It's like, nope, you can't use this anymore. We're not doing this anymore. So everything that you've paid for just isn't there.
Yeah.
So that's a problem with digital. Apart from that,
that's a problem with some digital.
Some digital, yeah. Just having, I mean, there's a lot of e-readers out there that are just like, yeah, just put whatever you want on here. Put PDF files, put RTF files, put Word documents on here.
Yeah.
And a lot of them can read the Mobi files that are the format that Kindle is in, so you can transfer them to other systems. You can save all of these files on your computer in ways that can't be taken from you, and then put them on whatever e-reader is available.
And you should.
Yes, you definitely should. You never know when those are going to disappear on you. But, getting back to the pricing, like I said, I didn't think I'd be able to sell them at, $21. So I set it to $16. No. Digitally, I make about 3 times as much per digital copy. No, wait. 2 times as much per digital copy. I sell the digital copies at $2.99. And every sale I make twice as much. It's like over $2. I get 70% of the sale for that.
Right.
I would imagine, like, the Rackin' is closer to 60,000 words. If I were to put that one into print, it would probably be a lot closer to the $9.99 price point to sell.
Yeah. Is there an adjustment for bulk?
Yes, there's definitely an adjustment for bulk.
Okay.
I am almost certain that it's probably $12.99 for a copy of the Rackin' in print.
That's still a lot for a regular size novel.
It really is. I would like to be able to sell at $9.99 because, like, when I first started doing this, my whole philosophy was, well, it's digital now. I used to buy books for $5.99. I want people to be able to get books as cheap as they possibly can. I was originally selling for 99 cents. The only problem was I wanted to get the better distribution from Amazon, and so I switched the good guy back to the KDP Select, which basically means my book is exclusive to Amazon now.
To Amazon, yeah.
And you have to set your books at $2.99 or higher if you're part of that program.
Right.
It's probably better in the long run. $2.99 is still pretty cheap for a book. Like I said, I paid $5.99 when I was buying them in paperback. I was hoping that I'd be able to do paperbacks for around $7.99 these days, but there's no feasible way unless...
I haven't been to a Barnes & Noble recently. Do they? Are the prices?
Yeah, the prices are much higher.
Too?
And people are printing in larger, not larger books, but like more people are printing in that 6x9 size that I did.
Yeah.
And also noticeably more people are printing with matte finish covers.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of things to consider when you're going to print your book, because there are people that you can go to. They're usually called vanity press, but they're not all just vanity press. That basically means you've got a book that you made and you really want to have a print version, and you don't necessarily have any marketing that you're doing to sell to other people. It's just like, you go to these presses, print this book for me, they'll print it for you, you'll have copies. Yeah. Now those are.
You can go to a private print shop and just say, "Hey, I want you to print a copy of this and bind it." They'll do that. Yeah. It's just expensive.
Yeah, it's very expensive. You can usually do a better job of. So I remember we used to get like paperback books we would run off, and our cost per book to the person that bought them was about $7 per book.
Yeah.
For like 500 copies, which that's pretty expensive. I mean, that's what, $3,500.
Yeah.
So you got to have the money up front. However, the thing to remember about that is, there's a lot more middlemen when you're dealing with Amazon. So if you just go to a print shop yourself, and you're going to have to order in bulk a lot of times, like you're at least going to have to order. I think the smallest print run I ever remember doing was like 100 books, which that's much more affordable than 500. I think we might have done like 50 to 70 books a few times,
but not frequently.
Yeah, not very frequently, because the printing press makes more money the more books they can run off and ship out to other people. And anytime they have to do a small run, that's an entire new setup for a different book that you're going to have to run through the bindery and the collator. So, that it takes time every time they have to change over from one book to another. They prefer to do 60,000 books at a time and then switch to a new book and run off another 60,000 copies. If they have to do 100 and then 5,000 and then 20,000 and then 300, that really slows down the process.
A lot more labor goes into that.
Yeah, I mean, it can take up to an hour to set up just the machine I was on, and then the guy that's running the binder after me would have to get the glue set right and make sure the books are coming out through there okay.
Yeah.
And so, we had to spend a lot of time getting each machine set up, and I know that they're using different processes now. There's a mix of both right now. I don't know how well those new processes are working, but I'm sure that there's still one guy that has to take 20 to 30 minutes between each book to set everything up, unless they're forcing people into standardized sizes, and they've got like 5 machines that do the 5 different sizes or whatever. Yeah, and that would just be paperback, because hardcover is an entirely different animal. But you can probably make a lot more money if you can sell your books without Amazon or anyone else. If you go to a print shop, get your books printed, you're going to make more money per book that you sell, and a lot more actually, because I mean, I saw the prices now and it's just like, oh yeah, I mean, if I could get all of these printed at $7 a copy and then I sold them myself, if I could actually sell them, I could sell them for $12.99 and make $5 a copy instead of $1 a copy at $16.99. Yeah. So there's a lot of that to consider. Amazon's convenient, and since nobody even knows who I am, I'm much more concerned with having my book somewhere where people will see it and making less money to eventually get people to be more interested in them.
Yeah.
But, there's a lot of people that do have success with getting the books printed themselves, and this is a thing you can do, by the way. Most people that, they try to sell their books, they don't know exactly what to do once they have the books. You can go to bookstores and say, hey, I'm a local author. I have a box of books here, and, you could probably sell them at this price point. Will you buy this box at a discount from me at this price point? And, bookstores do like to be able to set up little local author stands. I know Barnes & Noble has done that for years. Borders used to do it. I don't know what their process is for actually accepting now, but I know that even as much as like 5 years ago, that's people would just go into the stores and be like, hey, do you want to buy these books to sell? So, it's a bigger company. I don't know how much has to go through any corporate office, but, it's a thing you can do. And there's always...
It'll depend on how much of like how much of Barnes & Noble is owned by the person who runs it locally. Like, depending on like their franchise or whatever agreement they have to be a Barnes & Noble.
Yeah, I mean,
that'll determine that, but I don't know what those I don't know what the parameters are for that.
Yeah, it usually works out in their favor too. I mean, I'm sure they don't have to make a call to the CEO to approve this or anything. Like I would guess that the store manager gets to make the call and say, yeah, we'll buy that, and then they just have to approve whether they want that book on their stands or not.
Right.
Some people might ask you if they can have a copy to read first to make sure they want to sell it in their store, so they're not like, selling something that looks innocent and is tentacle hentai or something.
Right.
Apart from that, though, there's, it's like I said, it's really convenient to use Amazon.
Sure.
And there's a couple of other places where, like, okay, so Barnes & Noble does do printed versions of people's books. They have a much higher requirement to be able to get that service. You have to actually have past sales with digital books or with getting your own books printed. I think largely it's for people who do independent digital books. If you generate a lot of sales and can show that, like you can go through them.
It out for you.
You can go directly through Barnes & Noble digitally. You don't have to go through any third party. Barnes & Noble has their own service where you can say, hey, I've got a book I want to upload and sell digitally. Those are easy to approve. You don't even...
Yeah.
There's not much of a process.
Well, those are so easy to approve that they can be done technically without the author's express, approval.
Oh,
right?
oh no, not with Barnes and Noble. Amazon is worse with that than Barnes and Noble.
Well, no, but I mean, like the stuff I put up on Smashwords is up on Barnes and Noble.
Yeah,
I didn't have to approve it at Barnes and Noble in order to get it there.
Right.
I only had to approve it at Smashwords. So
right. Well, what I'm saying is that if you go directly through Barnes and Noble, they have a very, very good system compared to Amazon.
yeah,
Amazon is easier. But if you actually make sales at Barnes and Noble, they will help you put your book into print, and they'll put it on their shelves. And a lot of times they're helping you market just a bit, because they'll put little things up at Barnes and Noble that are like, hey, this is a local author in this city, or this is an interesting new book from an independent author. I've never really bothered going the Barnes and Noble route, but it's again, these are all viable options for anyone who either wants to see their book in print or wants to be able to give their book to someone in a physical format.
Right.
So that's I don't know if I missed anything, but that's a lot of what I... Oh, yeah, there is probably one more thing worth mentioning. So for a worldwide distribution, selling a paperback book at $21 is... It might sound crazy, but one of the things that I did is I looked up the prices that other people were looking at, and apparently the sweet spot that a lot of people are finding for paperback novels is $16.99 to $17.99.
Wow.
And people are printing larger paperbacks, which means you go to a bookstore a lot of times and you look at the back of a paperback book and it's like $24.99, which used to be hardcover prices.
Right.
Now you can still find hardcovers for $24.99, but now those are creeping up to the $30 range. So so it's not necessarily... I'm not recommending against using Amazon to do a worldwide distribution, because you're in the price range of other people if you sell a paperback at even $24.99. So $21.99 would be virtually no profit. It's probably not worth it. So if you're going to do a worldwide distribution and they give you a price point on Amazon for above $20, you may as well go $24.99, because anyone that goes into a bookstore is going to look at that and they're going to be like, well, that's the same as all the other books. I mean, I guess that's what I have to spend if I want it. You're not doing yourself a disservice, and you're people should want for the authors that they read to make money anyway if they like them.
Yeah. Right.
So you're not really doing anyone a disservice if they're going to spend $25 on a book. May as well be yours. And then, hardcovers, of course, I'm going to do a hardcover print run of this as well. Well, I say print run. I'm going to have it available, and I'm probably going to buy like 10 of them.
Yeah.
But and I'm on the fence whether I want to
at the low price point of $52.99 a pop.
It's going to be at least $30 just to break even. So it's probably going to be like a $32.99 or a $34.99. But lately, every time I've gone to Barnes and Noble to look at book prices, it's getting worse and worse and worse. I'm seeing regularly hardcover novels that would have sold for $24.99 7 years ago are in the $39.99 price range.
Oof.
Yeah, there's some real sticker shock lately. I actually just bought a paper, and textbooks were traditionally always more expensive because
they're printed generally in incredibly small numbers and for incredibly small audiences. So yeah,
and they usually have a lot of like images and things, pictures, that time-consuming things to make. A copy of Deep Learning, A Visual Approach by Andrew Glassner, which discusses artificial intelligence systems and machine learning techniques.
Yeah.
I picked up a copy of that. It's paperback, $99.99.
Yeah, that's not too crazy.
I would guess that about 10 years ago, this would have been $60, probably. So
No. So here's the thing, is that textbooks in particular used to have an issue where they would have an international edition. And the international edition would generally be priced at like $30 to $40. But the American edition, which is the only thing you could get from bookstores, like the either the university bookstores or the bookstores that the universities like sent you to, they would all be the American version, which is the same book but is priced at like $90 to $100, even up to $120 for some stuff. But like, this was, 10, 20 years ago, kind of in that range. People in America started figuring out that these international editions existed, and people internationally started figuring out that these international editions could still be sold in America, and so there was a very rapidly expanding industry in doing that. My copy, I have several textbooks that are international editions, technically.
Oh, you learn something new every day. At least I do.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
The actual textbooks that are, printed and sold in America are ridiculously expensive. $120 for it's a big book, but it's more than it's more than you would pay for, a similarly sized non-textbook, right? Like because the textbooks are often written by professors, things like that. And they just get very narrow distribution, because generally or frequently what will happen is, you'll be going to college X or university X, and one of the professors at university X wrote a textbook, and so the other professors at university X use that professor's textbook, but nobody else does.
Yeah,
it happens a lot.
I mean, we had things at our college
my organic chemistry textbook, I think, was written by someone at the university that I was at the time.
A lot of my engineering books were obviously like printed at the college, bound together with ring binders.
Yeah.
And they still charge like $70 for them. It was like 60 pages.
Yeah, it's a captured market. So.
Yeah. College is trash, by the way, and that is my,
for the most part. Yeah.
That's my full rendered verdict on that. Go there if you're going into science, or anything technical. Don't
science, medicine, law.
Yeah, don't bother with anything. And if you're going for computer programming, I mean, you can. I would say you don't have to.
I wouldn't recommend it. I know enough people who, without any formal computer science credentials, are better computer scientists than most computer scientists. So programming and computer science stuff is almost entirely self-taught at this point.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so like, the best computer programmers I've ever met were all self-taught, even if they did go to college. Like, I have a friend that that he went to college for computer programming, and I'm sure he learned a lot there, but we were in a class in high school together where me and him both taught ourselves HTML when the internet was like first becoming a thing.
Yeah.
And he just kept going with it from there. He actually liked the web design stuff more than the software programming side. At least that's what he said one time. I don't know what his opinion is now, but I know he still works a lot with the web stuff.
No, that's fair enough.
But, he went to college for it, but he essentially taught himself, because you're always pretty much teaching yourself.
Well, there's always new things coming out, and once you've learned and are, thoroughly understand one or two programming languages, learning a new programming language is not that hard, because it's mostly syntax and libraries.
Yeah.
And most of those things are they share a lot of it's not like the old days where you had like COBOL and C, and they were both very different, and what they could do was very different. Nowadays, everything is kind of the programming language is more often kind of just a wrapper around the objects that you're trying to create. And so, yeah.
Yeah, I remember, I taught myself to program on a Commodore 64, and to this day I can look at, like C programming code and pretty much know what it's saying. The only thing that I'm not familiar with is all the libraries, which you kind of had to make that all yourself back in the day.
Yeah.
So we talked about some things you can expect if you're printing books from Amazon.
Yeah.
I feel like that is more valuable than talking about the printing in general, because I don't know everything about that.
Well, I think it's useful for people who are listening to this will say, "Hey, I want to have something that I wrote printed. What do I have to do? How much is it going to cost?" Hopefully, they got some ideas, like a vague idea of that from us here. Hopefully, they understand that there's actually multiple ways to do it, and you don't have to go through Amazon if you don't want to. I think that's a pretty good place to leave that topic for the moment, unless we decide to go into a deeper dive later, maybe.
Well, just one more thing to say is, like, I know that there's people that have their hang-ups about...
What are you, Columbo?
Yes, one more question.
Yeah.
I can't get my eye to do that thing though.
That's okay.
There's a lot of people that have hangups about Amazon and doing things with Amazon, especially being exclusive to Amazon. I'm not the biggest fan of Amazon. I don't like a lot of what they do and a lot of what they're involved in. But
Sure.
you're in a world now where, 15 years ago, I would have had to send my manuscript to multiple publishers and wait, hoping one of them actually sends something back. And a lot of times they don't want you to send anything if you've sent it to someone else. So there's this big waiting period. We're in an age now where you can, anything you want to put in print, anything you take the time to write, you can instantly put out for people to see. And I have no qualms about putting my stuff exclusively on Amazon if it's the thing that's most likely to reward me for doing so. That should be the one hang up you shouldn't have. It's like, why hurt yourself and them? Like, you don't even necessarily have to have this desire to hurt Amazon. It's just like, I don't buy the things I don't want, and I don't do the things I don't want with Amazon. But Amazon is a place where I can easily publish anything I write and easily put it into print in both paperback and hardcover. And it's kind of an obvious choice. Kind of stinks that, I was kind of disappointed years ago when the market really...
Well, so we can kind of expand here, right? Like, Amazon, it's just a fact they have the most market share in ebooks right now by a very wide margin. However, so in order to be, it's what, Kindle Select or something like that? Is that what you have to be exclusive for? Yeah. So you can go, so I can speak to this because I don't use Kindle Select, but you can put your things on Amazon, and as long as you're not on Kindle Select, you can put your things elsewhere too, which, we've both done.
Yeah.
I mean, I started out, my first novella that I wrote in 2013, I just put it up on Smashwords, and I made it decide what you pay, because, I didn't pay for a cover. I just did a pencil drawing of a cover, and, it was my first novella, so I didn't expect it to be like this amazing thing or anything like that, but, I put it up and, my suggested price was $1, and people have bought it for nothing, and people have bought it for $1, and...
I'd buy that for $1.
I mean, there's a lot of different distributors and stuff like that out there that will publish ebooks for you, and you don't have to. So another thing about Kindle Select is that it's not like all of your works have to be exclusive to Amazon. Only the ones that are on Kindle Select, right?
Right. I mean, should I take a second and explain that?
Well, no, I can explain it since you've been doing most of the heavy lifting so far this episode. So, you can have for instance, Smashwords will take books that are free. Amazon doesn't do free ebooks. Barnes & Noble does free ebooks. A lot of different places do free ebooks, but Amazon does not. And so you can put your stuff up on Smashwords and just have it be a short story, or, something like that. And you can set it to be free. You can set it to be whatever price you want. You often will get better royalties from places other than Amazon. Amazon maxes out, I think, 70%. For non-exclusive stuff.
No.
At Smashwords, no?
Amazon gives you 70% if you're exclusive.
No. I had some of my novellas are at 70%.
Wait, did they
Pretty sure.
Did they change that recently? I forgot what the rules were for. There's like some stipulation where if you're 70% but not exclusive, you lose something?
No, not to my knowledge. When I put up my last 2 novellas, they asked me how much to charge for it and what schedule I wanted, and I could choose from, I think, 40 and 70. Something like that.
Okay, they must have changed something, because at least...
And the only thing I had to do in order to get it to the 70% thing was price it at larger than $3.
That must be it. It used to be you had to be KDP Select to get their 70%.
Yeah.
So that's actually a good point, and now that you brought that up, I'm having second thoughts about going KDP Select. I must have missed that.
Yeah.
Because I remember the selection now for 35 and 70%, and I always looked at that like, oh, well, that's the selector for KDP Select. So I would click that, and I would do KDP Select.
Yeah.
Because they used to have an explanation next to that was like, click here if you want to be exclusive in KDP Select and get 70% royalties. It used to say that. So I'm guessing...
So right now there's a separate window that's up above that says, do you want this to be in KDP Select? And... then below that, there's in the pricing section, there's just a radio button that you can pick which one you want.
Okay.
It doesn't.
So
it's not like that anymore.
That means the major bonus of being KDP Select is that you are in Kindle Unlimited.
Right.
So your book is, to the readers that have Kindle Unlimited, it's
effectively free.
It's free to them, and you get paid per page
based
read.
on how much they read.
So if they read your whole book, you get a larger percentage of. And I was exclusive when I first published a couple of things. I can say from experience, even my crappy little indie books got more viewership on Kindle Unlimited than they did when I was just trying to get people to download them for purchase.
Yeah.
So it's not.
That's a point. That's a point worth considering.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That was my biggest consideration of me, because I've been on and off KDP Select several times, and I kind of want to go full in for a little while and just see how that helps. I'm doing more advertising through Amazon now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing my paperback guerrilla marketing, like you said.
Yeah. where it's like placed in a library, but it has no barcode or anything, and so they're just like, what is this? And then they throw it in the garbage.
Yeah. They just have a shredder that's like built for that. Like this is something people do constantly, and they just
Oh no. So you walk into the library, right? You walk into the library and you look, and there's like a table that says, indie authors, and you're like, cool, and you're like, hey, what is this? And they're like, oh yeah, you can, if you're an indie author that's local, you can just bring in a copy or 2 copies of your book, and you can put them on this table, and we'll set and everything will just work out. And you're like, cool. So you bring in a copy of the book, and you set it down on the thing, and it immediately tilts and dips your book into a shredder, and you just hear meow.
Before you even leave, like you get to watch it happen.
Yeah. Well, yeah, like the table tilts, and you can see the jaws of death for your book as it is turned into spaghetti.
It's been so long since I've really used libraries that I don't even know what their system is for checking books in and out now. I don't know if they still have that little card with the stamp thing, or if they've gone to QR codes.
No. So I've been using my public library a lot lately, since I don't want to keep buying books all the time, but I want to keep reading books.
Well, they're $16.99 for a paperback. I mean...
Right. And so I have been using my city's public library a bunch, and every book has a chip in it somewhere, tucked away somewhere, and you basically take it to a table, you scan your card with a barcode scanner, and then the books are just laying on the thing, and the thing reads them while they're laying on it, and then you just take your books.
Got it.
And then to return them, you put them on a conveyor belt, and they're done.
So what you're saying is I just need to swap all those tags out from John Grisham books.
Ooh, yeah. That won't help.
How won't it help?
Just...
It sounds like there's not much supervision in this.
Well, so that doesn't... All that will do is when someone takes the copy of John Grisham book, they won't have to bring it back. But then the library will charge someone who takes your book as if they stole a copy of a John Grisham book. It doesn't help anything.
Nobody's going to notice a missing John Grisham book. You can build a house out of copies of John Grisham books.
You could, but you'd notice them if they were missing.
Only if it was one of the doorknobs.
Or a window.
No, I don't think you would notice if it was a window missing. I think specifically that's the least likely to be.
I mean, if it became a window.
Yeah, I think it's just a fun process of figuring out how to get people to read your books. Because I know my biggest problem is that I don't know people who read books. I know you. And we have like one other friend who reads a combination of books, graphic novels, and comics. So that's 2 readers that I'm aware of.
2 people.
Out of every single human being I know.
Right.
So yeah. It's hard to locate those people that'd be like, ooh, that's a book, I'll read that. And even for people that read, like, I like to read, and I know that I don't have enough time, nor do I have a plate large enough for all the independent authors that would like me to read their book.
Sure.
There's been a handful I've been able to get my hands on so far and read, and some of them are pretty good. Some of them are awesome. Some of them are the kind that I'm not going to give a review because I can't give an honest review.
Mm-hmm.
But it's one of them things where it's like, if I give a review of a book that I don't really like and it's an independent author, I don't want to do a dishonest review, so I might just not review, but then give like a 3 or 4 star review,
Mhm.
because I feel like there will be plenty of other people that will read it that haven't like talked to the person personally and are just like, yeah, I'm just going to say whatever I want about this. So
Yeah.
I don't like the idea of dragging other people down, but I also don't like the idea of tarnishing my reputation by saying I really enjoyed something that I didn't.
No, that's fair, I think.
Not even my
I mean,
reputation. Like, it just doesn't sit well with me. I don't like to lie about
so
what I thought about things. I will do
well, no,
so
I,
for...
I agree with that. This is one of those things that it's difficult as a writer because you are in this community of people who want good reviews of their stuff, but they also don't want dishonest reviews of their stuff. Usually, there's people that buy reviews. There's people that get angry at people that buy. It's a very complicated mess.
I honestly don't blame indie authors for buying reviews, because that has become part of the algorithm that actually gets their book in front of people's faces. They will eventually
absolutely
get the honest reviews if they buy those reviews. I'm not going to buy reviews. Well, okay, no, technically I paid for someone to review my book because I wanted someone to review it.
Right.
And it was like, all right, this is pretty expensive, but I really want to know what someone who isn't a friend of mine actually thinks about this.
Yeah.
Not that I don't value the opinion you rendered. You have my favorite opinion of my book.
Well, I have a couple of different of the favorite opinions of your book.
Yeah,
because you've posted at least 2 different things that I said about your book that you were like, this is my favorite thing about my.
Well, no, you had 2 reviews of 2 different books.
Well, no. I reviewed. So the one that I really like is my review on Amazon of The Good Guy, in which I finish it basically by saying that it is a lot like Terry Pratchett with a hint of rabies, which is one of my favorite phrases.
The quote that because I did not put your full review in here, I just wanted to get the one line. So the quote that I pulled for this book was, "The good guy's unstoppable rampage and the author's wry, often dark, sometimes maniacal sense of humor reminds one of Terry Pratchett with a hint of rabies." That's the one I put in the book.
Right. So that's one thing I said about The Good Guy, but then I've also said, I think pretty sure about The Good Guy, something along the lines of like someone reads it and they're like, I want to know. I forget where it was, but you posted. It was like just an instant message between you and me about the book.
It said, that was the one that said, "I used to be a militant atheist feminist, and now I'm a devout born again Christian, just so I can be sure there's a hell for this author to go to."
Yeah, right. So
I think I nailed that. I might have gotten a word or two wrong.
You were pretty close, pretty darn close. But yeah, I mean,
but that was you. That was you doing a mock review that someone else might have said. That's my favorite thing that you've ever said about it.
But there's all kinds of marketing strategies for getting reviews on books. You can offer. Basically, I mean, I'm not an expert in this because I've never done it successfully, but I've done a couple of little, like online seminars and stuff about it. And basically, you cultivate a group of people on, social media or something like that who are willing to be like your first line of readers. You market the book, you give them discounted copies or pre-orders or something like that, and you kind of separate them into like 3 different groups, like the group that will read and review, the group that will read, review, and like post about it on social media, and the group that will just read it and maybe review or maybe say something about it, or even just like like your post or something like that. And so you separate your group into these 3 levels of, what do you call it, like enthusiasm. And there's nothing wrong with being less enthusiastic, right? You don't ever shame anybody for it, but this is all stuff that you have to have a pretty sizable social media footprint already to do. It's complicated and difficult. So it's something that people know how to do, but it does require a lot of work.
Yeah, I have done a lot of this, and I've read a lot about how other authors have done this. Like being on writing forums and sharing your work is one of the top things that people like to talk about doing. It can have its effectiveness, and it cannot, depending on what's going on the forums. One of the things to remember is that a lot of times people put together these writers' circles where everyone shares their writing and talks about their writing. A lot of times you're not really getting anyone reading your stuff that way, because these are other people who are interested in having people read their stuff. And
no, that's the point.
I've been on several writing forums where it was all writers, and the people that were there did not seem aware of that at all. And so they were wondering why they couldn't get anyone to read anything. It's like, all of these people are working on writing. They don't have time
to read stuff. Yeah.
I would jump on writing forums and I would read a couple of things here and there and try to tell people what I thought about it. I would look for people that were asking for advice, and then I would give it. 8 times out of 10, the people aren't actually interested in the advice even when they ask for it, but that's okay, because you're only really there for the one that cares.
Right.
There's definitely something to be said about being a part of a community of people who are both reading and writing. That is definitely worth it, because you get multiple people who are there to give criticism about how you're writing, and then there's multiple people there that are giving criticism about what they think of your writing, which the two combined are way better in tandem than just having one or the other.
Yeah.
You don't want to be the person that gets a bunch of people telling you you wrote something awesome, and then you put it out there and they're like, you don't know how to structure a paragraph.
But yeah.
And they're out there. Those books are out there. Like, I have a couple of wobbly paragraphs that I keep coming across when I'm writing, and it's just like, oh, how did I miss that? But there are entire books out there that people published with what had to have been the most naive anime style smile on their face as they published it.
Yeah.
And you read them and it's just like, I don't know what you're talking about in an entire page. Which character is this? What is the character doing? What's
happening?
Yeah, there's like a pot and a pan that you mentioned, and the character's doing something with the pot and pan, but it doesn't sound like cooking. I don't know where we are now.
And now he has a trumpet, and I don't know why.
It's funny. I would hope that anyone that wants to write would want to write well and want to write something that someone can sit down and read and for the most part understand. No matter how good a book is,
and not be consistently bothered by bad grammar, misspellings, editing errors, things like that.
Yeah. Oh man, it drove me crazy. So I went over everything with a fine-tooth comb again. I listened to the robotic reading of my book. I really thought I got all the mistakes out of there. Ordered the print copies. Opened to a random page on Kindle on my book.
Yeah.
And there was a the that was supposed to be a she.
Oh.
First page I opened to. Completely at random. Yeah. I found the last... there's other mistakes in there, I'm sure, but the last big one,
sure.
I'm pretty sure there aren't any spelling errors left. I don't care too much about every paragraph being perfect, because every book I've ever read has had paragraphs where it's like, all right, I don't quite get that, but that's okay. The story's still flowing well. That's all that matters.
Well, there can be a little bit of a gray area with paragraphs. Like, the author might intend for something to be difficult to follow for mood reasons or something like that. There's all kinds of stuff like that, but yeah.
Yeah, you just don't want a whole book that reads like that. You don't want something that is just completely unintelligible.
The reader should not be continually drawn out of his attention to your book by its mistakes.
Yeah. Yeah, if you...
I find typos in almost every book that I read, so...
Yeah, I can't think of a single book I've ever read where I didn't find something wrong, but you're not... Do not be one of those people that will not publish just because you haven't caught all your mistakes yet. I thought I had everything the first time I published The Good Guy. I have done 6 revisions at this point, because the first time...
It's a big book.
Well, the first time, I think, when I went through it, after thinking I had gotten everything, I finally sat down to read it again a few weeks later. 36 mistakes.
Yikes.
And those were the worst ones. Those were the ones that it was like, I misspelled a word. I wrote she instead of the probably 3 times in that book. I don't know how that happened. I don't use autocorrect, so that's all on me. I
have to turn off autocorrect because it corrects things that...
I had one where I had written through THROUGH instead of THREW.
Oh.
And that might not sound like a big one, but that does not read well.
No. Well, gosh, this just happened the other day. I was Yeah, so I was writing something and like I had to turn off the auto capitalize because there was no way to put a wildcard in the abbreviations list to ignore. And so I was like, well, now I can't. Now I have to turn this off entirely because I'm not going to put because what I did was I had like a series of 3 things that ended with etc. And they were separated by slashes. And you don't put spaces between words and slashes.
Oh.
So yeah.
So you had like the coding issue.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, that's that can be annoying. I used to have a lot of problems doing the well, I don't know what the hyphenated references. No, it's not a hyphenated reference. But like a dash reference where you do a dash and then you insert something that's related but is like an aside, and then you do another dash.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
well, like a what's it called? Like it's almost like in a positive, but with an M dash.
Yeah, it's and I like to use those a lot, and
sure, I use them a lot too.
In both Word and OpenOffice, it messes up your quotation marks unless you do a double dash.
Yeah, it's supposed to be a double dash. So the way that works is that a single dash is a hyphen and is used for connecting compound words or putting a word at the end of a line so that it continues to the next line. 2 hyphens next to each other becomes an M dash, which is the dash.
I am amazed that isn't automatic. Because you put a space when you do an M dash. You don't separate.
No.
Do you?
M dashes do not have spaces between the words or the dashes.
Well, all of mine do. I guess it's just been a long time since I've seen another author use them. I did not even think that it.
I use them I use them very frequently.
Yeah, I do too.
When I actually ran one of my short stories through ChatGPT for it to analyze it, and it was like, oh yeah, he uses M dashes. He uses dashes a lot to do yada yada yada. It was kind of fun.
I want to run the good guy through ChatGPT just so I can be the first person that ChatGPT flags for the NSA.
Yeah.
It just sends me a message, I'll get back to you in a minute. And then there's just like a siren going off somewhere.
Yeah, hold on and...
Please wait warmly. All right, well, we were going to talk about other things, but I don't...
We're at an hour and a half. We probably should not go super long.
Yeah, because if we talked about at least one of the other things that we were going to bring up, that's probably another hour in itself.
So what I'll say is this. I think that we're going to... What we can do is this. Next week, we're going to do a review, either half-blind or non-blind, of Godzilla -1.
Yes, Godzilla -1. I'll give a short verdict here. Because, fantastic movie.
Well, yeah, so you've seen it. I haven't seen it yet. I might go see it this week if we're going to do a review. Because you said it was good, and so it might be good to just do a full review of it. So we're going to do that next week. That's going to be our episode. So yeah, look forward to that.
Just because we've got like a week here, and I don't know how long it's going to be in theaters, I want to emphasize that not only do I think it's good, I think it's the best movie that came out this year, and it's a Godzilla movie.
By the time this podcast comes out, that movie will be available on either disc or streaming probably.
Oh, I'm an idiot. You're right. I forgot. We're recording way ahead.
Right, we're recording way ahead of time.
You know what I did earlier?
A weekly podcast. What's that?
You were in the middle of talking when, like, 2 minutes after you said, "Oh no, you've been doing most of the heavy lifting. I'll explain this part." You said something, and it reminded me of something I'd been thinking about earlier, along the lines of, maybe when we're doing this other thing, I should ask Rudy if he wants to mention the Wordy Pair podcast and let people know that we do that. In the middle of you talking, in what we're doing right now, I almost interrupted you to say, "Hey, I just had a thought. We should probably tell people about that podcast we're doing."
The one that we're doing right
now. And I caught myself, and I was like, "Wow, I'm tired."
Yeah. Fair enough. Let us call it then. We will call this an episode. We have discussed your experience with publishing paperbacks on Amazon.
We have joked about this several times, but this is like the 20th time we've brought up my book in this podcast, and we haven't even done 20 episodes.
Well, it's
so
like...
we were joking about changing the name of the podcast to...
Well, that's supposed to be an April Fool's episode, dang it!
Oh, we're not going to do that for April Fools, because we've got so much better stuff for April Fools.
No, you're right, we do. We have good things for April Fools, like 4 years worth. And this is the one thing that we're going to spoil, is that we were going to do an April Fool's, or at least we suggested doing an April Fool's episode where we officially changed the name of the podcast to Justin and Rudy Talk About the Good Guy. Which would be hilarious to do for one episode. But by the time that episode comes out, we'll probably already have talked about the good guy so many times that people will be like, "Oh, this is realistic, and I understand, and I believe this."
Yeah. And we don't want me to adopt Max Stirner's philosophy too much here. You're giving me too big of an ego here.
No, you do not want to be a Stirnerite and be an author. That's going to go poorly.
Yeah, we'll save that for the people that work on Doctor Who. Anyway.
Yeah, this is episode 16 of the Wordy Pair podcast. We are talking about publishing and paperbacks and other fun stuff like that.
Yeah, we actually talked about something relating to writing this time. I think we kind of missed that last time, but yeah.
Well, last time we talked about Alien and Aliens the movies, and I sure tried to talk about the writings. I was prepared to talk about the writing, and then somebody was like, "Oh yeah," and then this and this and this visual thing. I'm like, "Oh," but it's okay. It's all good.
If you haven't learned by now that I come into all these things half cocked, then you've known me long enough. You know me.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm doing.
It's all good. None of us know what we're doing. That's why we're the Wordy Pair and not like successful authors.
I have good advice when I'm thinking about it.
Maybe.
I also have very bad advice also when I'm thinking about it. And you have to guess which is which every time.
Every time.
And when I'm not thinking about it, nobody knows what's happening.
Yeah, pretty much. All right. Episode 16 of the Wordy Pair, publishing in paper. I'm Rudy.
And I'm Justin.
And we will talk to you later.
Thanks for listening to the Wordy Pair Podcast. Our passion is all things writing, world building, and getting into the weird and wonderful world of fiction. We hope you enjoyed our unique takes. If you did, make sure to like, rate, review, and subscribe to get your weekly dose of writing weirdness. We'll be back soon, but in the meantime, hit us up on Twitter. For Rudy, it's @Rudolph_Cone. And for Justin, @Ninja Mouse Chew. See you next time on the Wordy Pair Podcast.